It's funny how one offhand comment can wreck everything. He said I was too flirty, just like that. No warning, no build-up, just a lazy accusation tossed over coffee like I was supposed to smile and take it, like it was just a joke. But it wasn't a joke to me. It landed like a stone in my stomach, heavy and sharp. I remember blinking, pretending I hadn't heard it right, hoping he'd laugh and take it back. He didn't. He just looked at me with this flat expression, like he'd already made up his mind. Before I walk you through the full story, I just have a small favor to ask. Make sure to subscribe to the channel, hit that like button, and let me know in the comments. What city are you watching from? It's always amazing to see how far this audience is reaching. I tried not to overthink it, but I couldn't stop. Every glance I gave, someone suddenly felt suspicious. Every conversation, every lighthearted comment felt like a test. I could feel him watching me differently after that. Like he was keeping track. Like I was a risk he wasn't sure was worth taking anymore. And it made me feel small. Like everything I did would be twisted into something ugly. I kept replaying the scene in my mind, over and over. Too flirty. The way he said it, the tone, the implication. He wanted me to feel guilty for being confident, for being visible. And the more I thought about it, the angrier I got. I wasn't cheating. I wasn't even close. I was being me, someone who talks with their hands, who laughs easily, who knows how to connect. That's who he fell in love with, wasn't it? But now, that version of me was somehow a threat. So when the party came up that weekend, and he said he couldn't make it, something about work, again, another convenient excuse that felt like a deliberate withdrawal, I went alone. The decision felt less like a choice, and more like an inevitability. I told myself I needed the break. Just a night to breathe without being monitored, without the invisible leash tightening around my neck. I didn't dress up for attention. I didn't plan to cause trouble. My black dress was simple, comfortable, but part of me, a small, defiant part, wanted to remember what it felt like to be unapologetically myself, to be around people who didn't dissect my every move, who simply enjoyed my company. James was there. Of course he was. Logan's best friend, effortlessly charming, always with that crooked smile that made people lean in without realizing it. A magnetic quality that I'd always found harmlessly appealing. We'd always gotten along, maybe a little too well in Logan's eyes, but nothing ever crossed the line. Until that night. The air was thick with the scent of summer and cheap beer. The music a pulsating background to the rising tide of my frustration. I don't even know when the shift happened. One moment, we were talking, laughing, standing too close in that casual, innocent way, his arm brushing mine as he gestured. A shared glance that lingered a beat too long. And then something clicked. I looked up at him under the patio lights, the hum of the music a low thrum against my skin, and a thought, cold and clear, pierced through my anger. This is what Logan's so afraid of. And instead of stepping back, instead of retreating into the safe, suffocating box he'd constructed for me, I leaned in. I kissed him. It was quick, quiet. Not fireworks, not passion, just rebellion. Just one calculated moment of saying, fine. If I'm going to be punished like a criminal, I might as well commit the crime. The taste of cheap wine and desperation. It was a statement, a whisper of defiance hurled into the night, aimed squarely at the invisible chains I felt tightening around me. And in that single act, something inside me felt lighter. Not better. Not right. Just less suffocated, like I was reclaiming my space, my choices, my version of reality. Logan wanted to play thought police? Then let him wonder what he drove me to. Let him wonder what happens when you push someone to the edge. But the relief didn't last long. It was a fleeting, toxic high. Because secrets have short lifespans. And guilt. Guilt has a voice that doesn't shut up when the music stops. It started as a tiny prickle under my skin, then grew, wrapping itself around my throat, squeezing. And that night was the beginning of the end. The unraveling I didn't plan to tell him. It was one kiss, one meaningless, petty, stupid kiss that meant more to my frustration than my heart. I thought I could bury it in the noise of everyday life, drown it under shared breakfasts and grocery runs and movie nights where we pretended we were fine. I told myself it didn't matter, because it didn't change how I felt about him. It didn't mean I loved him less. It was just a reaction, a symptom, a flare-up of resentment I didn't know how else to express. A silent scream in a relationship that had grown too quiet. But guilt is a leak in the ceiling. It starts with a stain you can ignore, a faint discoloration you tell yourself isn't really there, and then it spreads. Slowly, persistently, insidiously, and eventually it drips. A cold, steady drip that wears away at everything beneath it. The night after the party, he came home tired. Normal tired. Like he was just hoping for leftovers and sleep, for the comfortable rhythm of our shared life. And for a brief moment, a foolish, fleeting moment, I believed I'd gotten away with it. That maybe the kiss would rot quietly inside me and never see daylight, a buried secret I could carry alone. But then he said James had texted him. Something about me looking too good at the party. Something about how he hadn't seen me smile like that in a while. The casual tone of his voice was like a hammer blow, and that's when the ceiling cracked. The drip turned into a torrent. I tried to act indifferent. I laughed it off, threw out some weak line about James always being dramatic, always prone to exaggeration. But my laugh was too sharp. My voice was too high, cracking around the edges. I felt his eyes narrow, even though he didn't say anything. That was Logan's way. He never exploded. He observed. Quietly, carefully, like a puzzle he was slowly piecing together. Each silence a deliberate placement of a new, damning piece. And I could feel it. The way the air changed. The subtle shift from normalcy to a chilling premonition. He waited until I went to bed, feigning sleep, my heart hammering a frantic rhythm against my ribs. Then he went through my phone. That's the part that still makes my stomach twist. Not just because he invaded my privacy, but because he knew exactly where to look. Like part of him had already known, had felt it in his bones, the cold certainty of a truth he hadn't wanted to acknowledge. I'd never deleted the texts with James. I should have. Oh God, I should have. But some warped part of me wanted them there. Maybe I thought if I had evidence, if the betrayal was tangible, it would prove to me later that I'd been justified. That I wasn't crazy for how I felt, for how ignored, boxed in, and diminished I'd been, for feeling like I was disappearing, piece by agonizing piece, in my own relationship. But there it was. Our texts, not graphic, not romantic, just familiar. And somewhere in there, James had typed, "You sure Logan's not gonna freak?" And I'd replied, "He said I'm too flirty, maybe I should just prove him right." That was all it took. The cold, hard proof of my petulant rebellion. The empty space. When I woke up the next morning, the bedroom was cold. Not physically, emotionally. The blinds were still drawn, casting the room in a dismal, perpetual twilight. His side of the bed was empty, the sheets stiff and untouched, as if he'd never been there. And there, at the foot of the bed, sat my suitcase. Packed. Neatly, efficiently, brutally. It was the kind of silence that screamed. The kind that filled the room with unspoken words, with the shattering of trust, with the death of a future. He didn't leave a note. He didn't wait for a confrontation, for my pitiful apologies or desperate explanations. He just made it clear. My home was no longer mine. My place in his life, unequivocally revoked. And I knew better than to beg. Knew it deep in my bones, even as a desperate whimper tried to escape my throat. Because the moment I kissed James, I had crossed a line. But the moment I justified it, the moment I articulated that twisted logic in a text message, revealing the dark heart of my resentment, that was the true betrayal. That was the unforgivable sin. I sat there, frozen, the weight of what I'd done finally settling on my chest, a crushing, suffocating boulder. And for the first time, I wasn't angry. I wasn't defensive. I was just empty, hollowed out, like I'd opened a door I could never close again, and everything that made me us had just drained out. I didn't try to text him. My fingers hovered over the screen, but what could I say? I didn't mean to? I meant to. Every calculated, rebellious cell in my body meant to. I didn't feel anything. I felt everything. just not the right things. I felt anger, defiance, a fleeting sense of reclaiming myself, none of which had anything to do with genuine affection for James. And now I was out. Out of his house, out of his life, and worst of all, out of excuses. The descent, I always thought rock bottom was a single dramatic moment. A slammed door, a shouted curse, a tear-stained goodbye. Turns out it's slower than that. Like free falling in an elevator that keeps stopping just long enough to show you every floor you've ruined on the way down. Each one a fresh wave of nausea. The first night I was exiled from our apartment, I convinced myself Logan just needed space. Time to cool off. I curled up on Paige's lumpy couch, the springs digging into my back, and tried to sleep, but every rustle of the blanket felt like my own skin crawling with remorse and anxiety. At 2 a.m., my phone lit up. My stomach flipped. Maybe it was him. A sign. A lifeline. It wasn't. Wow, Zoe. Heard you traded up. Classy. It was a random number, quickly identified as one of Logan's old college friends. The words were a venomous dart. James? Seriously? I typed back, the bitterness rising in my throat. Each notification that followed was a fresh paper cut across nerves already raw, each one delivering another blow to my crumbling reputation. I typed furious explanations. You don't understand, Logan iced me out. I only wanted him to notice me. Then deleted them. Explaining would only make me smaller, more pathetic. Even the silence on my screen felt like it was yelling, broadcasting my shame to the digital world. By morning, I'd been unfriended in 3 group chats, the virtual doors slamming shut on friendships I'd taken for granted. Paige left early for work, mumbling something about a tenant inspection and hinting that crashing on her couch couldn't become a pattern. Translation: 48 hours, and I'd be someone else's problem. The subtle eviction notice was delivered with a practiced ease that made me feel even more disposable. I walked the city just to move, to outrun the gnawing emptiness. My paper-thin coat no match for the biting wind that seemed to cut right through to my bones. Passing a bakery where Logan used to buy me croissants after Sunday runs, I pressed my forehead to the cold glass. The comforting smell of cinnamon, sugar, and warm bread sent a memory shooting through me. Him grinning, flour on his cheek, saying I looked cute with crumbs on my lips. I inhaled until it hurt, a desperate, futile attempt to breathe the past back into my lungs, to somehow resurrect that innocent, joyful version of myself. Regret, I realized, tastes like sugar when you're starving for comfort. At the diner, I chose a booth in the corner, hoping anonymity would dull the ache, that I could disappear into the mundane clatter of plates and muffled conversations. The waitress recognized me anyway. Small town, loose lips, everything a matter of public consumption. Her eyes flicked to my swollen, tear-stained face, lingered on the single coffee I ordered, then slid away, a silent judgment more painful than any shouted accusation. No judgment spoken, but it hung in the air heavier than cigarette smoke. James's version of the story was already wallpapering the town, an ugly, distorted mural, and in his retelling, I was the seductress, he the helpless participant, conveniently omitting his own eagerness. He wouldn't mention the tears that spilled the second my lips left his, how I whispered Logan's name like an apology mid-kiss, how the act itself felt hollow and wrong. That truth was too inconvenient for his carefully crafted narrative. Back at Paige's, amidst the growing sense of dread, I tried one more time. My thumbs hovered over the keyboard like disobedient kids, trembling with a fragile hope. Logan, I'm sorry. I miss you. I miss us. Can we talk? Send. Delivered. Seen. The digital receipt of his receipt. The ultimate confirmation of his silence. Nothing. Just the cold blue checkmark mocking my desperation. That evening, the couch was no longer available. Paige's boyfriend needed space, a transparent excuse that felt like a final, humiliating push. I stuffed what few clothes I had into a tote, the zipper protesting like even it was tired of my mess, of my chaotic undoing. Outside, dusk bled into night, the streetlights flickering on one by one, lonely sentinels. I considered the bus station, a fleeting thought of escape, then realized I had nowhere to ride to. I'd already burned every bridge, every connection, leaving myself stranded on an island of my own making. So I did the thing I swore I wouldn't. I walked back to our building. His truck wasn't in the lot, the familiar space empty. Desperation whispered, "Leave a note." I sat on the cold concrete of the front steps, pen shaking, words flooding faster than the ink could keep up. "I wanted you to see me. Instead, I made you look away." I folded the paper, slid it under the door, a fragile testament to my brokenness, and waited. 5 minutes, 10, 30, an eternity. Footsteps echoed in the stairwell. My pulse spiked. But it was only the neighbor, who eyed me like a stray animal and hurried past, averting his gaze. Midnight struck. The chill finally convinced me to move, my body shivering uncontrollably. As I turned away, defeated, I caught my reflection in the lobby glass. Mascara rivers, eyes hollow, a wine-purple bruise blooming where James's stubble had scraped my jaw. I almost didn't recognize the girl staring back. Maybe Logan wouldn't either, even if he opened the door. I walked into the dark, the tote slamming against my legs in rhythm with the question pounding in my head. What do you do when sorry is just another brick in the wall you built between you and the only home you had? The reckoning, they say people only realize what they had when it's gone. But I knew what I had. That was the problem. I knew Logan was safe and kind, and the kind of man who made you feel like your worst day couldn't last more than a hug, a quiet reassurance that everything would be okay. I knew how he saw me, not just my flaws, but my strengths, my quirks, my entire messy, beautiful self. I knew, and I gambled anyway, trading his steady love for a fleeting, bitter taste of rebellion. And now? Now I wasn't sure who I was, without the reflection I had in his eyes, without his unwavering belief in me. I was a fractured mirror, reflecting only emptiness. The walk from his building back to the center of town felt like a physical punishment. My boots blistered my heels with every painful step, my tote strap had frayed and bit into my shoulder, and the night air sliced into my skin like it had a personal grudge, a frigid reminder of my solitude. Every streetlight flickered like it might give up on me too, casting long, shifting shadows that danced with my despair. I checked my phone every 5 steps, a desperate ritual. Nothing. No reply to the message, no missed calls, not even a bubble giving me hope he might be typing, a faint ember of connection. It had been 36 hours since I'd kissed his best friend, if I could even call James that anymore. His loyalty as flimsy as my own, and the moment kept playing in my mind like a stuck tape. James's hand on my back, the sharp intake of breath from Logan as he saw, the sound of the wine glass hitting the floor. The one I shattered, not him, a symbol of everything I'd broken. That was the worst part. Logan hadn't raised his voice. He hadn't called me names. He hadn't screamed, hadn't flung accusations. He just stared at me like I was someone he'd never met. A stranger. An imposter. And then he walked away, leaving a silence that echoed with finality. I ended up sleeping in the hallway of a friend's building. Not inside, not even on a couch. Just on the cold, unforgiving carpet outside their apartment door, curled up against my bag like it could shield me from how pathetic I had become, from the biting chill of self-loathing. I told myself it was just one night, that I'd find a solution in the morning. I always did. I was a problem solver, a survivor. But morning brought nothing but silence. My friend didn't answer her door. Paige stopped replying to my texts. James blocked me, his cowardly escape from the consequences of our shared mistake. My phone, once filled with laughing group chats and heart emojis, was now a graveyard of gray message bubbles and unanswered calls, a digital monument to my isolation. I tried to call Logan again. Straight to voicemail, his automated voice a cruel reminder of what was lost. So I walked. For hours. Aimlessly, relentlessly, as if the physical exertion could somehow purge the emotional agony. I walked past the park where Logan and I had our third date, the one where we got caught in the sudden spring rain, and he offered me his jacket even though he was the one shivering, his teeth chattering, but his eyes warm with concern. I walked past the dog shelter we used to volunteer at together, the bakery he loved, The little bookstore with the crooked door where we bought a puzzle on a boring Sunday and spent the whole day arguing about whether the sky piece was blue or gray, laughing until our stomachs hurt. I walked past the memories like they were minefields, each one detonating a fresh wave of sorrow. And then, because I had nowhere else to go, because every other door was closed, I did the only thing I could think of. I went to his mother's house, a desperate Hail Mary pass. I knew it was a bad idea the second I rang the bell, the chime echoing the hollowness in my chest. But I hoped. Maybe she'd be the bridge. Maybe she'd hear me out, offer a flicker of understanding. She opened the door in a bathrobe, her face tight. Not angry, just profoundly tired, etched with a resignation that mirrored my own. "Zoe," she said flatly, her voice devoid of its usual warmth. I didn't know where else to go," I stammered, my voice barely a whisper. She looked at me for a long second, her eyes, so much like Logan's, filled with an unreadable mix of pity and disappointment. Then she opened the door wider, not to let me in, just to hand me a folded envelope, crisp and white against her weary hand. "He left this for you." I stood there, dumb, staring at it, my heart seizing in my chest. "He asked me not to get involved," she said softly, her voice barely audible. "But I always liked you, just not like this." Then she shut the door, gently but firmly, leaving me standing on the porch, a cold wind whipping around me. My hands shook as I opened the envelope, the paper rustling like dry leaves. There was no venom, no rage, just Logan's handwriting, steady and heartbreakingly neat, each letter a precise, painful cut. "Zoe, I meant what I said when I loved you. I meant it with everything I had. But now I have to mean it when I say I can't be that man for you anymore. I don't think you meant to hurt me. But you did. You kissed someone who was supposed to have my back, in my home, while you wore the necklace I gave you, the one I bought to remind you how beautiful and loved you are. I didn't need perfect. I just needed honest. And I needed to be enough for you. Take care of yourself, please." That was it. The final period on a love story I had recklessly, carelessly ended. No grand pronouncements, no furious recriminations, just the quiet, devastating truth. I sat on her porch for hours, long after the last vestiges of twilight had faded into true night, not crying. There was nothing left, the well of tears long since dry. Just silence, numbness, a profound aching void where my hope used to be. And when night fell again, a cold, indifferent blanket, I walked back to the place where I was sleeping. Only this time, there was a note on the door. "Tenant reported loitering. No exceptions." Sorry, I was officially homeless. Not just figuratively, not emotionally, literally. My last fragile tether to stability had snapped. The people who used to call me glow-up goals, who admired my confidence and vibrancy, now ghosted me, their digital silence a louder condemnation than any words. The guys who used to flood my DMs with compliments now made jokes behind my back, their whispers a collective, mocking chorus. I was the girl who kissed her boyfriend's best friend and still thought she deserved a second chance, the cautionary tale, the villain of her own story. And the worst part? I still loved Logan, with a searing, agonizing intensity that felt like a punishment. I didn't miss the comfort or the convenience of our life together, though those were gone too. I missed how safe I felt waking up next to him, the warmth of his presence, the quiet rhythm of his breathing. How he always knew when I needed space and when I needed him closer. A silent understanding that transcended words. How he made me laugh when I took myself too seriously, pulling me back from the brink of my own anxieties with a gentle hand and a shared smile. But I kissed someone else to prove a point. A foolish, self-destructive point. And now the point was clear. I had no one left. No home. No plan. Just a tote bag full of clothes, a dead phone battery, and a memory of someone who once looked at me like I was his entire future, his whole world. If you enjoyed this story, make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you never miss the next one.